All right. Going to be a picks heavy episode this week on the podcast. I'm going to give you picks, predictions, selections, breakdown of as many as 34 games coming up this weekend. That includes AAA action, that includes high school hockey action. It's High School Hockey Day in the state of Michigan, I believe, this Saturday, and timing couldn't be any better. I believe there's 114 of the 130 teams in the state in action on Saturday, which kind of helps celebrate, commemorate that day, highlight as many teams as possible as we can. Uh, there's two major showcases as well. The KLAA-MIHL showcase this weekend in Livonia, planning on being there and getting eyes on all the teams in action there. But there's also the D3 Challenge going on up in Gaylord this weekend. So there's a ton of high school hockey action going on to kind of help celebrate and commemorate that unique day on the calendar here during the hockey season. So then on top of all that, I mentioned the MAHA showcase, their second of two events that they do each season. The first one, I believe, was back in September-ish and started kind of kicked off the travel hockey season there. So there's a couple of games I wanted to highlight and get into the mix there too. So if any of that kind of gets you going here, get you fired up for the weekend, you want to talk some hockey, want to touch on any of those topics, be sure to, as always, subscribe here on YouTube. Support is greatly appreciated. And then obviously, if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, be sure to give us a follow there as well. Rate and review and let me know kind of what you think, what you want to hear from the podcast and coverage you'd like to see moving forward as well. So a ton to get into. Like I mentioned, I can even give you a bit of a history on some of these events and really highlight the importance of these events and what they mean to the youth hockey landscape in the state of Michigan. We'll quickly kind of recap the picks and where we stand so far. Last week was kind of an unusual one. I was able to get my picks in for a couple games, but then later that day, those games went final. I didn't quite have a chance to share those games with you, the public, to let you vote on them. So the numbers are a little bit uneven here. That's okay. It's all in good fun here. I went 5-2-1 last week in the picks. Started out 4-0. And then the underdogs there started to make a bit of a comeback and humble me a little bit. So that puts me at 16-11-1 on the season. You, the public, are at 13-11-1, and that's kind of what I meant by that discrepancy there, just in the total number of games. So should be fun. I'm having a blast with it. Hopefully you guys are too, and kind of getting involved in the action there. So without further ado, I suppose we'll just jump right in here. I'm not going to waste any time. We'll get into let's see if I can, oh, here we go. I got to turn that on. Okay, good. I think we're up and running here. I got a little teleprompter for you guys here. We'll see how well this works. So MAHA Showcase, I believe they've been doing this now for probably 5 or 6 years. They had the first one at the beginning of the season, then added the second wrinkle to it later on in the season here, typically in December. This event a little bit different than the one earlier in the season because I believe they incorporate all the age levels. So you're looking at 2010s, 11s, 12s in action there in Fraser as well. But for my intents and purposes, really only focused on the 18s, 16s, 15s, and 14s. And of that, looking at the 18s, I'm not going to break down every single game, give you picks for every single game. I think there's 51 if you totaled all of them up between these 4 age groups. Not going to get into all of them because some of them are, I'll say, predictable, right? When the number 1 team in the state is playing the 7th or 8th ranked team in the state, it's not necessarily an even matchup, I'll say. So not gonna break down, analyze when it seems like a pretty clear cut and obvious winner there. So I tried to find some intriguing, unique matchups, and that's what I've highlighted here, as you see here on the left. At the 18U level, there's really only one matchup that really intrigues me there. It's number 2 Little Caesars taking on number 4 Fox. That comes to you at 2:30 on Saturday afternoon. I'm using my rankings here too. You can check those out at pdspicks.com. I've ranked the top 10 teams in high school hockey, as well as the top 10, top 8 or 9 teams in the AAA circles as well at the 18s, 16s, 15s, and 14s. So be sure to check those out. Number 2, Caesars beat Fox 2-1 in a shootout back in October. That gave them what is it here? Gave them a win in the season series. Gave them each a win in the season series so far. So they're 1 game apiece. Caesars has gotten progressively better and better as the season's worn on, and I'd expect that trend to continue. So I'm going to go with Little Caesars here and the 18s to get that victory, as I do my best Kirk Herbstreit on the teleprompter here. Moving on, I'll shift over here to the 16s. 3 matchups that really grabbed my attention right out of the gate here. Number 1, Little Caesars taking on number 3, CompuWare. That's one of the first games here tomorrow, actually, Friday, 12:30 p.m. Caesars thumped CompuWare pretty good, 7-2, when they played back in September. That might have even been at the previous MAHA showcase. I'm not positive on that, though. The rematch I'd expect to be a little bit closer, but I still expect chalk to prevail here. I'm going to go with Caesars again at the 16 level. That top Caesars team, I think, is just going to continue to prove that they are the top dog there at the 16U age level. I think, as I've mentioned before, VH kind of threatening in that age level too. But Caesars has still kind of flexed their muscles and proved that they're still the top dog, and until uh, otherwise someone else can uh, prove them otherwise. Jeez, struggling there. Second matchup here from the 16U, and I'm struggling a little bit here with the AAA landscape. I'm not going to lie, and a lot of that has to do with just the pure lack of information that's out there. I can't tell you how many of these teams I still haven't found rosters for, upcoming schedules, and God forbid you find stats on any of these teams. It's really unfortunate. I'd love to kind of highlight some of those top players, and could going back through some of my notes, but the AAA landscape changes by the day, so it's hard to really have your finger on the pulse and keep up on the day to day for all of these teams. So again, would love to kind of project and look ahead to the schedule and break down the roster and line combinations and starting goaltenders and things like that. But good luck finding some of that information there out on the World Wide Web. So, second matchup here at the 16U age level. We got number 4 Fox taking on number 2 VH. 1 o'clock on Saturday. Fox actually holds a 2-1 season series lead in that matchup, despite being the lower seeded team there, lower ranked team. I like VH. I think they even up that season series, to make it 2 games apiece. However, if Fox pulls off another upset there, I might have to rework those rankings there a little bit. So I'm going to give VH the nod there. But again, if something different transpires, we could really be looking at a shift in the rankings. Third and final matchup here from the 16U age level. I got number 3 CompuWare taking on number 4 Fox. Fox, again, just an intriguing team. They play teams tough. They might be outskilled, but they're not going to be outworked. This 9 a.m. game on Sunday, it'll obviously be each team's 3rd game in as many days. Again, I like that work ethic from Fox. They split a pair of games last weekend. CompuWare's 5-1 win being a little bit more decisive than Fox's 3-2 shootout thriller. Fox has a way of kind of grinding out teams, keeping it close. If CompuWare is worn down at all by the end of the weekend, I could see Fox kind of capitalizing on their weaknesses. So I am taking Fox here to get that win on Sunday, and even get their 3rd win of the season. And like I said, that happens, we could see some movement there in the rankings. So we'll go on here. I got 5 matchups at the 15U age level. 15's pretty good group, I think, across the board. Couple intriguing matchups, a lot of intriguing matchups here. The most of any age group over the weekend. I got number 4 VH and number 6 CompuWare. They play at 2 p.m. Friday. That's going to be one of your first games of the weekend at this age group. VH has won both of their previous meetings. But they were close games, 6-4 and 5-4. I expect this third game to again be high scoring, but VH makes it three in a row here. And I'm going to give the nod once again, VH with another W there over CompuWare. One more here. Number 2, Honey Baked taking on number 5, Fox. 6 o'clock Friday. Fox again, man. They're just scrappy at all age levels. Just love the way they play. It's not usually pretty, but they definitely contend and compete. These two teams actually haven't yet played this season either, which may benefit Fox and kind of sneaking up on a more talented bunch in Honey Baked. Uh, Looking at their shared opponents and just the overall kind of strength of schedule thus far, I give the edge to Honey Baked. I wouldn't be shocked if Fox pulled off the upset here, but I'm not ready to pick it at this point. So I'll lean towards the chalk there and give the nod to the higher seeded or higher ranked Honey Baked. And wow, my circles on the prompter are a little rough there. It looks like I'm Xing out Honey Baked as opposed to circling them. So a little rough, but nothing we can do about it now. We'll just keep plugging away here. What do I got next? I almost skipped a game. Number 3, OJG taking on number 1, Little Caesars. That's 11 o'clock Saturday morning. Caesars scored 8 goals the last time these two teams played. OJG has certainly improved since then, but still has shown a tendency to give up goals in bunches. 3 goals here, 4 goals there. I like Caesars. Oh man, my throat. Uh, I like Caesars to win big here again. I don't expect it to be 8 goals, but to beat that talented Caesars team, you're gonna have to score. OJG would have to score north of 4 or 5 goals, and I just don't see that happening. So one more here. Fox in the mix on a lot of these in a lot of these games I've highlighted. Number 5 Fox taking on number 4 VH. Another game Saturday afternoon. Fox, I think, is appropriately ranked here at number 5. They've beaten everybody behind them in the rankings and lost to everyone ahead of them in the rankings. I think that trend kind of continues here with VH getting a win pretty convincingly. So last one here from the 15s. I got number 2 Honey Baked taking on number 4 VH. That's on Sunday. Probably one of the last games of the weekend. Honey Baked won a 5-4 OT thriller in this series last week. VH, I think, comes out with something to prove here in the rematch. That salty taste still kind of resonates in their mouth just less than 7 days ago, and I think they get that win in regulation here. Let me make sure. Yeah, here we go. Okay, working with 2 monitors here. I got to make sure I'm doing the right thing. So going with VH there, and really as I'm looking at it here now, didn't realize this. VH 3 tough matchups on the weekend, and I'm giving them a clean sweep as well. 3-0 would be an impressive showing there for VH if that comes to fruition. So 3 games here at the 14s. Number 1 Little Caesars taking on number 4 Fox. 4:15 Saturday afternoon. Fox has competed well in this season series despite losing all 3 of their previous matchups. I think they compete and show well again, but ultimately Caesars comes out on top again as well. So that would make it 4 in a row over Fox. Number 4 Fox again in another big matchup here, taking on number 2 Honey Baked. This would be the following day, 1:30 on Sunday. Honey Baked throttled Fox 6-0 in October, but they then tied 2-2 just last weekend. So Fox really showing that improvement as the season's worn on. Does Fox finally get in the win column here against Honey Baked? I say yes. Let's get it done here, Fox. So maybe a bit of a upset there, but a big win, no doubt, if Fox can pull it off there. Last one here from the MAHA Showcase. Number 3 VH taking on number 1 Little Caesars. That again is going to be one of the last games of the weekend. 3:15 on Sunday. These two teams have split a pair of games thus far. This will be the 3rd game of the weekend for both of these teams, obviously. So it really comes down to, I think, who has more depth, right? Who has more legs come the end of the weekend. And I know a lot of these teams are accustomed to playing 3, 4, 5 games in a given weekend when you're playing in showcases and tournaments and things like that. but it ultimately plays a factor as that weekend wears on is who has more depth, who has more resources and guys they can go to on the bench. And Caesars, no doubt, has the edge there. So I'm going to go with Caesars here to close out the weekend there at the MAHA Showcase. So we'll put a bow on that for AAA hockey over the weekend. Tons of games, tons of action going on at Big Boy Arena now in Fraser. I got to get used to that. I know it's probably been a year, 2 years now, but it's still odd. Um, so tons going on there. Timing and everything. It's kind of wild. Like I said, just with this particular weekend, the amount of showcases that are going on, top teams competing, and even just your regular season games that are happening as well. You're going to have upwards of 150 youth hockey teams in the state competing in Michigan. Pretty wild, pretty crazy. Definitely a good weekend, I think, for hockey fans around the state. So, okay, let me shift gears here real quick. We'll get into the high school hockey landscape. I mentioned the D3 Challenge, the D3 Showcase going on in Gaylord this weekend. What is it? 2, 4, 6, 12 teams in action. This is a showcase that I didn't realize quite how much history goes into this particular event. I was going back and forth with director James Vanderveer. He's the guy who organizes and runs the event. Just about how long it's been running, teams that have you know competed, come and gone. Just a little more background on the event as a whole. And he shared a document with me that had results going as far back as 2004, and said the origins of the showcase go back even further than that. So anytime, I've been in the youth hockey circles long enough to know that when you've got an event that's kind of stood the test of time like that for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, you look at some of the more iconic events in youth hockey, the Pee Wee Quebec, the Brick, um, the World Selects Invitational, some of those events that have gone on for decades. It really speaks to the work that people put into those events, how that event is perceived by people around the event that compete at the event, and ultimately people go there, have a good experience, win, lose, or draw, doesn't matter. Go have a good experience, motivates them to then come back year after year after year. So I think the history of this event says a lot about the people who organize it, the people that run it, and then also the people that compete in it year after year. So, when the event is older than the participants themselves, I think that's pretty cool. In a pretty good group this year too. What was it? 4 of the 12 teams I had in my preseason top 25, plus Grand Rapids Catholic Central, who is in the mix this season. They rank currently in my top 10, which again, you can check that out on pdspicks.com. And three of the last 5 Division III state champs played in this event prior to winning the big one. So that I think tells you a good portion there too, where if you want to predict or you want to project who's going to win the Division III state title, start with this event and work your way out, because odds are your Division III state champion might even be in the mix here on this particular weekend in Gaylord. So really good launching point for any of those contending teams. Okay, let's get into the games. I broke them down. You got Friday, you got Saturday. I mean, I guess it's over here for you guys. It's over here for me, but I know you guys can't see this if you're listening on the podcast. But I'll try to fake it here. The picks on the screen are over here as I'm kind of casting this, but on my screen they're over here. So okay, Bay Reps take on Bay City. I'm not positive if I have these games. I think these are in order of which they happen. So if that's the case, the Battle of the Bays will kind of kick off the D3 Challenge here. Bay Reps are a damn good team. They're going to win a ton of games this season. I'm not sure Bay City has the depth to hang with their counterpart in this particular matchup. I like the reps to pull away as the game wears on. The state leaders, which is wild to say at this point. Grant Lucas leads the state in goals. Ethan Coleman leads the state in assists. I think both of those guys continue to stay hot for the Bay Reps and get the win here to start the D3 Challenge in Gaylord. So we'll put a circle on that and continue on with our teleprompter chalk talk here. This is kind of fun. I mean, those circles are a little bit embarrassing, but it's hard to draw when you're on the laptop pad here as opposed to like a mouse or something. So okay, moving on. Country Day versus Manistee. Manistee is a program I want to know more about. I want to get eyes on them. I want to look at the roster stats, kind of break it all down, but none of that information is available currently on the hub. So if you're involved with the Emeralds program, hit me up, show me a schedule, show me a roster, stats, anything you guys got so I can get a little more information on this team because I do think um, it's an intriguing bunch. They've played some tough teams. They've been a tough out already, even just 3 games into the season. They hung with the Bay Reps. I think it was just a 2-1 game with the Reps no less than 2 weeks ago. So I think they're going to hang around again here with Country Day. Probably again be a tough out, but ultimately I like Clay Spencer and company, and I think they're bound to really start stringing some wins together, and maybe that even starts this weekend with a win here against Manistee, and then maybe I won't get ahead of myself. I won't spoil Saturday's picks yet, but stay tuned for that Country Day. Okay, next matchup here: Big Rapids, Grosse Ile. You can call me crazy a little bit. I think some of the big wigs in high school hockey might look at this matchup and not maybe realize some of the implications or some of the talent that's going to be on the ice in this game. Fisher Gurney is a standout for Grosse Ile, has been now for 2 years. I want to say he had 50 plus points last season as a defenseman. He's off to a good start again this year. Big Rapids picked up an exchange student from the Czech Republic. Marek Mraz played for a top level U17 team in Europe. Mountfield HK. Actually know them a decent amount, well enough to know that where he's coming from is a hell of a program. So I'm buying the hype around this kid. I want to say he's already a point per game guy through their first 6 or 7 games. So actually should be a pretty fun matchup. Think it could be pretty high scoring. I like undefeated Grosse Ile because they can defend a little bit better. Now, I still think both sides produce. This could be like a 6-3, 6-4 type game, but I'm going to give the edge there to Grosse Ile a little bit to just be able to defend just enough to outscore their counterpart there in Big Rapids. So we'll put a circle on there and finalize that pick. Continue to move on down the line here. We get into Flint Powers taking on Grand Rapids Catholic Central. GRCC, they might be even better than I thought they'd be coming into the season. Zach Westrick and Nate Sova, they have a point in every single game so far this season for the Cougars. I think that says a lot. There aren't too many guys across the state right now with active point streaks throughout the entire season. So GRCC, wow. Sorry about that. I didn't want to get into this because I didn't. I don't know. Didn't want to get into particulars and whatnot. You guys don't care. Don't care about the labor. Just show me the baby, right? So just show me the podcast, PD. But been a tough week fighting chills and fever, some of that stuff. We're on the mend now. I'm on the up and up, but obviously the voice and I'm super nasally as well. I didn't want to get into the particulars. You guys don't care, but I'm on the mend. Obviously trending in the right direction. We'll be on site this weekend for the show for the KLAA-MIHL showcase, but just been a little banged up the last couple days. Hence the delay on the podcast and getting it to you this late in the week. But anyways, we'll get back to the action here. Where was I? Looking at GRCC, Flint Powers. I'm going to go with GRCC to stay hot. It's a tough opponent in Flint Powers. But I'm really buying this GRCC hype that the Cougars may be even better than I was giving them credit for earlier in the season. So, okay, getting down to it to close out Friday. Riverview Gabriel Richard taking on Chelsea. This is actually a rematch of a game they played last month. RGR won that game 2-1 in overtime, I believe. I expect this one to be close to. Uh, Pioneers have a real strong edge in goal, I think. A kid like Ryan Rainey, who's a top goaltender in the state. Plus, you got sophomore Connor Patak, who was actually in net the last time these two teams played. So whoever RGR goes with there, I think is going to give them a leg up in this matchup. And I'm gonna take Gabriel Richard to win the rematch, and they're not going to need overtime this time to do it either. So we'll give the worst circle on the board here to RGR. Whoops, sorry boys. Okay, final matchup of Friday. Divine Child takes on Gaylord, the host Blue Devils there. Brighton Thaxton is doing Brighton Thaxton things. And what I mean by that is he's putting up a lot of offense. He did so last season. He's doing it again this season for Gaylord. He's factored in on 11 of the team's 20 goals so far this season. While Divine Child may not be able to stop Thaxton, I think a guy like Braden McNamara can certainly keep pace with Thaxton, his counterpart on the other side of the ice. Should again be a high scoring game, tons of back and forth, I think. I'm actually going to lean DC's way here. Take the over on goals. I think this could be, again, a 6-4, 7-4 type game with tons of offense and excitement. And I'm going to go with Divine Child there, the Falcons, to get it done on Friday night. That rolls us into Saturday. I'm going to get going here. Going to pick up the pace here a little bit, I think. Riverview, Gabriel Richard, Flint Powers get things started on Saturday. Tony Venturini, I mentioned how much of the offense Thaxton factored into for Gaylord. Venturini has 13 points, and he's factored in on RGR's last 10 goals. The last 10 goals RGR has scored, Venturini has had a hand in all of them. So he's a major factor. But I do think Coach Travis Perry and Powers will have a tight game plan. They'll come into that with a pretty good preparation and identify Venturini, know where he's at, and account for him at all times. I actually like the Chargers' defensive effort and guys like Nolan Burner, Andrew Burney. I think if they can key in on Venturini there and maybe not necessarily take him out of the equation, but certainly limit his opportunities, I think that gives the Chargers here a really good chance at getting a nice win there over the Pioneers. Okay, so we go to Chelsea versus Grosse Ile. Another good game here, sneaky good. I think Chelsea is too good to stay winless for long, right? They're coming into the showcase without a victory. I got them dropping one on Friday. I just don't see that trend continuing for too long, especially with guys like Brandon Davila and Keegan Montgomery there on your roster up front. I think they bounce back on Saturday and they get that first win of the season against Grosse Ile in an exciting one, maybe like a 3-1, 3-2 type feel to it. So Manistee versus Divine Child. Again, Manistee doesn't score a lot of goals. Divine Child doesn't score in bunches either. I want to take the Emeralds here, but again, I don't know enough about them, so I'm going to go with the Devil I know as opposed to the Devil I don't, and I'm going to give DC. DC wins a low-scoring type game to me here as well. We'll close that out. Okay, Bay City versus Country Day. Could this weekend be that turning of the tides there for Country Day? I mentioned it earlier. They're just 2-6-1 or 2-6-0 on the season so far. I've got them winning on Friday, right? And a win here on Saturday to sweep the weekend. You're away, you're on the road, staying in a hotel, all those good things. You pick up 2 wins here on a boys' road trip like that. I think it can do a lot for morale and confidence there for a young team. And this could really be where they start to get their footing this season. So, again, I'm going to go with Country Day there to get their second win of the weekend. Okay, GRCC versus the Bay Reps. This has got a chance to be not just the game of the showcase, but the game of the weekend. You look at what's going on in Fraser, you look at what's going on in Livonia, and there's some big matchups in Livonia that I'm going to get into in a minute. This game, to me, the Cougars versus the Bay Reps, has a chance to be the game of the weekend. Uh, it's a statement game, statement opportunity for guys on both sides. A win here is gonna be heard pretty loud and clear across the state. Going to be emotional, competitive, maybe multiple lead changes, a good back and forth type feel to it. How about like a 4-3 finish? I don't know which way this one is going to go. I really don't want to pick a winner. I'd love to just be able to sit back and enjoy this because I do think it's going to be a great game. But ultimately, I'm going to go with the Bay Reps reluctantly. I don't want to pick a winner there, but I'll go with the Bay Reps there to win a really big crucial game. And then finally, to close out the D3 showcase, you got the host team Gaylord taking on Big Rapids. And I wonder if, just from a scheduling, right, I go back to my tournament days and everything. Gaylord, the home team, Big Rapids, probably a shorter commute than some of the others participating in the event. I wonder if this kind of is the finale of the event because they have the shortest commutes of the bunch, as something like that. So they get slotted in that final time slot on Saturday. So, okay, going all the way back to 2004, Gaylord has never won both games at the D3 showcase. You're going back 20 years. They've never won Friday and Saturday games. I, what did I, what did I, they've never won. Did I say that right? Yeah, I think I did. Sorry, I'm screwing up my notes here. I'm kind of tripping myself out. Was I supposed to? I don't think so. Let me. Oh man, I did screw up. Whoops. Oh well. I meant to pick Gaylord. Ended up picking Divine Child. It is what it is. I got to stick with it now. We're doing it live. Doing it live. So I just got to go with it. Initially, I had Gaylord winning on Friday with a chance to win both games Friday and Saturday, which they have never done going back as far as 2004, as far back as my records went. So, is this their opportunity to win both of those games? Well, again, I picked Divine Child over them on Friday, so that kind of negates this altogether. But a chance to get a win there against Big Rapids in a tough matchup. Can they get that Saturday win, which has kind of eluded them for a couple of years now? I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna take that trend to continue here. Jack Balahansky, Wyatt Sciarra. I mentioned Merrick Mraz. I think there's just too much offense there from Big Rapids for Gaylord to kind of keep up with. I think it's a high scoring game, 6-4 ish kind of feel. A lot of offense. Then I'm going to take Big Rapids there to get the nod. That pick I'm confident in. I'm double checking, double down. Wanted to make sure I looked at the right whatnot. That Gaylord, I'll circle back here. So initially I had picked Gaylord over Divine Child, and then here on the show, obviously picked Divine Child over Gaylord. So I'll kind of walk back that pick a little bit. It's okay. I do expect that one to be an exciting one, good back and forth. Could go either way, but I got to go with what my teleprompter says. My teleprompter says, there we go. I'll point this way. I'll go with what I put on the teleprompter. We'll go with the Falcons there as I circle back to Friday. Okay, we will move on and kind of start to close things out on this episode of the podcast with the KLAA-MIHL showcase. I had dubbed this the alphabet showcase there for a good stretch because of the mouthful of acronyms there. KLAA-MIHL, ABCD, right? Had a little fun with it in that regard, calling it the alphabet showcase. So they didn't have this event in 2020, 2021, obviously because of COVID, the COVID shortened season and everything. Coming out of that, and when the event kind of came back on the scene in the fall, winter of 2021, 2022, they had changed the name or kind of commemorated it by dubbing it the Adam Mitchell Memorial Showcase. And I did want to offer up a little bit of history. This showcase goes back, I believe, to 2017. And I got to know Adam Mitchell quite well during my time with Livonia Stevenson. Adam is Dave Mitchell's father. Adam was a fantastic guy. Um, Passed away in, I believe, March, April ish of 2020. But was just a fantastic guy. I can't say enough good things about him. He was a guy who, um, for the parents out there, for people who have kids who play in these types of events, who play at the MDHL or try out at Team Michigan. Like Adam was involved in just about everything in some way, shape, or form. And he was a guy who um, cared immensely just about the kids, cared immensely about the product, cared immensely about um, how everything was ran and run, and just wanted everything to be perfect, and was willing to jump in on wherever was needed. He was a guy who did a lot behind the scenes, who I think, for parents, for players, you tend to maybe take some of that stuff for granted, or maybe don't fully understand the impact or importance of it. Adam would jump into a scorer's box and do the score sheet. He would run a penalty box door if you needed him to. He would collect money and do admissions as people came into the game. Like wherever you needed, if you needed, uh, if you had a player who needed their skates sharpened between periods, Adam would run it to the pro shop for you and bring them back for you. Like he was that guy who just wherever you needed help, he was willing to jump in, and just a fantastic guy that I can't say enough good things about. He's been involved. He was involved in youth hockey for decades. I kid you not. I believe coached AAA hockey back when Dave was playing in the late 80s, early 90s. I hope I'm not dating you there, Dave. But so Adam was always involved in hockey at all levels, not just youth hockey. Was very involved with the Detroit Red Wings, and guys like Mike Babcock and Scotty Bowman leaned on Adam to do stats and things like that for the Red Wings. So he was a part of hockey at so many levels and so important. So for those of you who do know Adam, I'm not telling a lie about how important this guy was or how passionate he was about the sport. And for people that didn't know Adam, truly is unfortunate, but I do know his impact on the game continues to be felt and heard and made. And countless people in the youth hockey circles in the state continue to benefit from the impact that he made on the game. So I did, knowing Adam personally and knowing he was just a crazy passionate guy about hockey. I miss him a ton, and this every time this time of year rolls around, you really feel his absence is what I'll say. So obviously a guy I knew very well, enjoyed being around him, was so much fun, super passionate, like I said, and just funny to be around because of how passionate he was about the game and how loud he could be sometimes. I know I've talked about Adam a ton here now, but I just, like I said, for those of you who didn't get a chance to know him, wanted you to know that as you're going to this event or watching games, whether you're playing, whether you're watching, whether you're a parent, coach, new to the event, whatever it is, that it's not just a name on the wall. It's not just a name on the showcase trophy or anything like that. Wanted you to know how important he was and continues to be to the youth hockey landscape, to the high school hockey landscape. So, okay, let me get into maybe commemorate Herb, as so many of the kids called him Herb, obviously because of Herb Brooks and that passion, right? So I will commemorate Adam Herb Mitchell the only way I know how, by showing my passion for the sport, and offer up some analysis and picks for the upcoming showcase. Again, planning to be there in attendance, have eyes on all of these games, as many of the games as I can, players included. Maybe we'll do some fun stuff coming out of the showcase as well with a couple of players that stood out from each team. There's a lot of ways we could go with this. So, okay, let's get into right out of the gate. Canton, Gibraltar, Carlson get things started off Saturday morning. Carlson just hung with Country Day 3-2. That was a game earlier this week, and I think a strong showing there for the Marauders, I believe. Canton struggling a bit. They're just 1-5 on the season, but they are coming off of an emotional win over rival Salem there last week. The showcase is a bit of an experience, and I've been on both sides of it where I was with Stevenson for the first 2 years of the showcase and got to be a part of it as kind of the inaugural members, right? But then I've also been an invitee with Celine and getting to be kind of that uh, what's it called? Kind of de facto MIHL team there because the lopsided number in teams. I believe KLAA has 10 and the MIHL now has 9. So they bring in Gibraltar Carlson in this instance to kind of even out those numbers. Been in those shoes before, like I said, with Celine kind of being that invitee to kind of even out the field. And it's a tough spot to be in if you're not used to the environment. Uh, so I do think it's going to be a bit of a challenge there for Gibraltar Carlson. I do think these teams are pretty evenly matched, and Carlson has a good chance at getting a win. But ultimately, the early morning games, players are kind of off rhythm a little bit. It's just a different experience. Canton, obviously, having been there and done that and been a part of this since its inception, I think gives them a bit of an edge here. And I am going to go with Canton and the KLAA to get a win to start the uh, the Adam Mitchell Showcase here. Second game up, Plymouth takes on Port Huron Northern. Plymouth's only loss is a 3-2 game to Stevenson. Northern's only loss is to CC, which just happened Wednesday night. I think this matchup has sneaky good potential. Bryson Smith is kind of the key to success to me for the Huskies. If he can get loose and produce some offense, Port Huron Northern should win. But if it becomes kind of a battle of depth and secondary scoring, I like Plymouth in that regard. Um, but ultimately, Smith might just be a little bit too talented to keep at bay, and I'm going to go with Northern to get the MIHL back on the board, and it'll be 1-1 to start early in Livonia here. The Red Stallions take on Grosse Pointe South later later there as the morning wears on. This is going to be South's third game in 5 days, so that's a tough stretch. They will have played Rice and then Cranbrook, and then they get I think a pre-noon matchup here with Livonia United. That's a tough stretch. Probably some fatigue, I think, wearing there for the Blue Devils. But Livonia hasn't really looked as sharp or as clean as I was expecting them to out of the gate here. It's still looking like a bit of a work in progress to me. Um, I think they're still trying to get right, so to speak, in their first year as a co-op. So South, excuse me, South, I think in this instance is a bit of a matchup nightmare, kind of catching Livonia United at the right time even in the face of fatigue. You got defenseman Drew Brady, who's the team's leading scorer. I think that creates a bit of a matchup nightmare, as I mentioned, for Livonia United, and ultimately, I think the Blue Devils get it done here and get a second win over the KLAA. Next matchup here, Novi takes on Cranbrook. Novi's a bit younger than I expected coming into the season. It was maybe a bit of a blind spot, or I just wasn't aware of it. 8 of their top 9 scorers right now are underclassmen, and they're off to a bit of a tough start. I'd say they're just 1-4 on the season. I expect them to turn things around as the season wears on, but I don't think it happens necessarily here at the showcase. Cranbrook is a pretty talented bunch. I like Michael Horton for them. Rento Sajo is another guy who I liked for them when I watched them play the Bay Reps a couple weeks ago. Plus, junior forward Nick Timko has 8 goals in 7 games. I think that's pretty impressive. So I think there's just too much here for Novi to overcome, and I'm going to go with Cranbrook here and the MIHL to get a third straight win in the showcase. Next matchup, Salem takes on U of D. Again, a tough matchup. And I'm just not sure what Salem team we're going to see. Is it going to be the Rocks squad that came out and beat Cranbrook 4-3? Or is it going to be the group that came out and dropped a rivalry game there to Canton 5-4? Um, Kind of been a tale of two teams, and I just don't have enough confidence in the Rocks. And I'm not saying necessarily that U of D has exuded a ton of consistency either. Watching them against Orchard Lake, almost by period, it looked like two different teams there from the first period, but then to the third period in that game. So I do think U of D has a much higher ceiling, though, even in the face of all that kind of uncertainty. Aiden Sharon looked really reliable to me in the middle of that lineup. Carter Kate, Paul Terrio, they had layers of offense as well. So I think there's just too much there um, to kind of overcome that, even in the face of maybe some of that inconsistency of U of D. I think they can ultimately just out skill Salem at the end of the day. And I'm going to go with U of D to get another win there for the MIHL. Moving on here, we get into Northville and De La Salle. Northville's going to play you tough, right? De La Salle has some really good skill. I think it's two very different styles, which should make for a unique matchup. This is an opportunity in my mind for second-year coach Ryan Ossenmacher to get maybe the first of potentially many kind of program building type wins. As you're kind of in those infancy stages with a program, you're looking to hit some of those milestones, and maybe it's landing a couple AAA kids and getting them to buy in and join the program. Maybe it's um, getting approved and being a member at the MIHL showcase in February. Maybe it's winning a regional title, right? You kind of have some of these benchmarks that you shoot for, and some of these I think are big regular season games. Can we get a win over an MIHL team? I think this is a spot where the Northville can kind of get one of those program building wins and play a team like De La Salle tough, who's they I'm all over the place here. I gotta reel it in, Petey. Um, I liked the way Northville competed with Brighton last week. Brighton, obviously a perennial powerhouse. And while Northville got shut out in that game, they showed a lot of life, showed a lot of fight, competed well, had chances, had moments that I think you can kind of build upon, especially from a momentum standpoint. And that's what you're looking for, I think, early on when you take over programs like that in year one, year two. You're looking for those little victories that ultimately lead to a bigger victory. I think this could be Coach Ostermacher's kind of first big victory, where the dots start to connect for the players, right? You're blocking shots. Well, why am I blocking shots? Because it then leads to this offensively, or I'm hard on pucks getting them out of the zone because it leads to a odd man rush the other way. I think this is a game where it starts to click a little bit for Northville, and they do get that kind of first benchmark win under Ryan Ossenmacher at Northville. So that would, let's see, I don't know if that first game technically counts towards the standings or not. So if it doesn't, this would technically be the KLAA's first win towards the standings on the weekend. Okay, moving on here, we're getting down to the final couple games. Got Heartland and Brother Rice. Was really good to see Rice bounce back and have a strong showing against CC last week in the Catholic League playoffs. I know they didn't get the win, right, but the way they bounced back, I think, still says a lot about that group's compete level and just overall desire. I'm sure they didn't feel good about about their showing in that 5-0 loss on Thanksgiving Eve. So for them to come back and really have CC on the ropes and up against it there at a 4-0 deficit early on, I think says a lot about Rice. But ultimately here, Heartland is another tough matchup. Heartland has a ton of skill throughout its lineup. Ian Castamo is sensational. Drew Lesperance, LJ Sabala, all three of those guys, the couple times I've seen them now, have all been on three different lines. That kind of gives them a scoring threat on all forward lines up front. This actually could be the game of the night, I think, with a lot of good back and forth action. Ultimately, I think Heartland just has more skill, more talent. Still might not be buttoned up and packaged and nice and pretty and crisp just yet. But ultimately, I think that talent kind of wins in the end. And strong goaltending too. Good goaltending options there. Not that Brother Rice doesn't, right? Turner England is fantastic, but I've really started to like Heartland's goaltending situation the more and more I get to see it. So I'm taking Heartland here in like a 5-3 type game with some really good action. Man, almost done here. Almost done. All right, which is good because I need a bit of a timeout. I need a break from talking here. Last two games of the night, you got I think host Livonia Stevenson, right? Taking on Trenton. Stevenson's 3-2-0 on the season, but every game has been super close. Uh, this one should be too. I think Derek Buchanan is the lone senior on that Stevenson squad, and he leads the team in scoring. Colin Strobel, Owen Hall are all exceptional talents as well. Those are guys that really stand out to me. Just think it's going to take a little bit more than sheer effort plays to get the puck past guys like Evan Seavey or Noah Miklos, whoever Coach Chad Clements kind of tags with the starting nod on Saturday. Both are going to be tough for Stevenson to get the puck past. Stevenson is absolutely a work hard type team. They're going to grind you out. They're going to forecheck the hell out of you and be hard to play against. But ultimately, I think you're just going to need a little bit more skill to create offense against two exceptional goalies that I just don't necessarily know if Stevenson has that capability just yet. So I'm actually going to go with Trenton here, 3-1 in a low scoring, exciting one there to close out action on Saturday. And then obviously the finale. What is it? The main event of the evening. It should be an exciting one. I think this is a matchup a lot of people have been looking forward to for various reasons. I think there's a contingent out there that just wants to see CC fall. I think there's also a contingent out there that's kind of pulling for Brighton in general this season, knowing some of the pieces that have come back this season for their senior year. So I think there's a couple pockets out there with a vested interest in this game for some of the reasons I had mentioned. Right, wrong, or indifferent, I think those narratives are out there. That's basically all I'm saying. I do believe this is your undisputed number one versus number two. I have CC one and Brighton two, but could really go either way, and probably will continue to have that debate as the season wears on, and could potentially be a preview of our Division One state final come March. So CC showed that it's human when they played Rice last week and fell to a 4-0 deficit there in the first period. But then they also showed why they are CC and why they've been undefeated for the last 34 games in state play by scoring 5 unanswered and coming back all the way to win that game in the Catholic League playoffs. Brighton, I think, is much more capable of creating and sustaining an offensive attack against CC. You know, Rice scored a lot of its goals in transition, a blocked shot on a PK, and then they went in on a breakaway and were able to score offense that way. I think Brighton will be able to kind of create offense organically with some of the horses they have up front, and really go toe to toe with CC better than anybody has in the last couple outings, anyways. Especially this season in particular. You'll have Cam Duffney on one side, Jackson Walsh on the other. I think this has all the makings of a heavyweight bout. I do think this game in particular will have more offense than some of the previous matchups have. The last couple matchups between these two teams, I don't want to say have been a disappointment because they haven't been. They've still been great games, but it's lacked maybe that back and forth. It's lacked offense and excitement. It's been 4-0. It's been 3-1. It's been 2-1. I think this game is going to have a bit different of a narrative and could actually be kind of a high scoring 4-3, 5-3 type game. And I don't see the Bulldogs being intimidated in this matchup either. I think there's some bad blood that still lingers from last season. I think they're going to come out motivated for revenge. I think they get it here. I'm going to take Brighton to win by cashing in and making good on a couple power play opportunities, and then being disciplined as well in the D zone. I'm going to take them by like a 5-3 type score, but I don't necessarily know that a win here is going to translate to a win in March, right? There's a long time between now in the playoffs, and a lot can happen. So I don't necessarily know that, regardless of who wins here, that it's a foregone conclusion they'll be the favorite 3 months from now either. But nonetheless, I am going to go with the Bulldogs here to pull off. It's not really an upset, but it would be a big win in the high school hockey landscape. So, okay, let me close out this window. We'll come back to center here and we'll kind of wrap things up. So, that was a lot of games. I believe 34 in total, which is the most I've given you in a long time. We'll continue to do some fun things as the season wears on, right? With the the MIHL showcase in February. You'll have the Chelsea showcase as well. So this is far from our last stretch of major picks segments, but shoot, that was long. That was an hour's worth of youth hockey picks for you. So you can check out even more breakdown on these matchups at pdspicks.com. There's also a link in the description to the article. If you want to make your picks, right? You think my picks suck? Well, take your best shot, buddy, because I'm trying to get eyes on, watch as much hockey as I can this season. I was running a bit of a total so far. We're a month into the season, and I've seen 20% of the teams in the state so far. I feel pretty good about that. That's not too bad. We'll get eyes on, what is it, 20 more teams this weekend at the Adam Mitchell showcase. Plus, we'll watch back some games maybe from, the MAHA showcase, the D3 showcase. There's a couple just regular season games worth noting this weekend too. So there's a ton to watch. It's an exciting time of the season. Tons of great content for you guys too. Like I said, be sure to check out pdspicks.com. You want to talk to me about any of these picks, you want to, voice your opinion and let it be known, you can get at me on social media as well. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. As I've mentioned before, 75% of you guys are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, which just blows my mind. And I can't have that. So if you've made it this far into the podcast, if you've made it this far into the broadcast on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Show me some support. I'd really appreciate that. And then obviously, if you're listening on Apple and Spotify, rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys. Until next time, until Saturday. How about? Until Saturday, skate hard, have fun. I'll see you.